All right. Hi, everybody. Sean Edwards here again. It's Tuesday, so we do Tuesday Tool House Tools on Tuesdays. And that's a lot of tea and a kind of a tongue twister there. But I'm really excited today because I have a new friend. His name is Christophe Bakunas. And I actually met him through a friend that I had in middle school that we recently, kind of came sort of stumbled upon each other on Facebook and started talking. And he was seeing the great work that I was doing, or I think it's great work. He thinks it's great work. And he said, you have to meet my cousin Christophe. So I did. And I'm really, really excited because all of you know that I'm um, a very passionate Montessori educator. I've been doing it for over 30 years. And then one of the things about Montessori is practical life, and teaching children how to live life and to be part of life and to be a human being, not just going to school to learn scholarly activities. So Christophe has a really fun practical life skill that he really wants to bring to the minds and the hearts and the souls of people, and particularly children, as it doesn't really exist right now in the educational world. So we'll get to that in a minute. But Christophe he calls himself a serial entrepreneur. So he obviously has that, whatever it takes, that knack for starting businesses and being successful and doing his own thing. He has two children or three?
Three children.
Three children. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was going to say three, and then I thought, no, maybe it's two. He has three children and he loves to cook. And he's passionate about the human condition, as Maria Montessori was, and as she taught all of us to be. So he's launching a new initiative, which has to do with education and teaching, and a lot about finance, which covers a vast array of topics, from yes, teaching the skills of finance to understanding what's going on in the world with finances and where the equity gaps are and things like that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this business that you're starting and launching? And then
Yeah. Well, first
yeah,
off, thank you very much, Sean,
yeah.
for just inviting me on. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm glad Scott was able to connect us. This company that we're building right now and moving into production, it's a financial investment and education tool called Wondrous. And we'll share with you the website so you can get first person information about the build and how the company is rolling out. We expect to have this product out in about 6 to 10 months. It depends on the technology development. But the crux of this has been a lifelong passion of mine, is to really take a step into giving to others, being of service to others. And one of the things that I recognized as a young teenager was that I had no skills in the financial world. My parents didn't have them. My grandparents didn't have them. And as I got older, especially once I started having children, I realized that the blueprint of how we deal with finance, investing, even simple things like checking and savings accounts, these are really driven by this blueprint of our family and that little ecosystem that we live within.
Yeah.
And I saw this massive gap that exists. I coach baseball, so I work with youths all the time, and I love it. It's absolutely one of my most favorite things to do in the spring and summer. And I'm watching these young, beautiful kids run around, and I constantly am thinking, how can I help these people? There are life lessons within sports that we can give. And then I realized with technology, I can potentially help millions of young adults and adults get a proper education on how to handle their finances. And that is the basis of what Wondrous is. So when we look at this category, the field that we're building the product in is called fintech, so financial technology companies. And there are three things that are very, very different about the Wondrous platform, because I'm trying to fill in some holes that don't exist. Let's say you're an educated investor and you have your own Charles Schwab or TD Ameritrade account or something like that. I encourage you to go on and take a look at their educational tools. They are driven for people that actually know something about finance, and it has no conversation with children. And
Right. I agree. There's nothing really out there.
no, and it's very rare even within the school systems that you make a concerted effort to talk to kids. But we know this, like kids are sponges. And if we can give them a vector to follow at a young age, then they can be heads and shoulders more successful than others just because they've planted some nuggets and seeds along the way. So go and check out your own educational tools on your own investment devices and scratch your head about that and go, am I even transferring any knowledge to my kids?
Right. Do I even understand it myself?
Precisely. Adults too. Like this is a symbiotic tandem education tool. This is designed for 6-year-olds to 76-year-olds. It's not just for youth. It's for the entire unit, this ecosystem that we're trying to create.
Well, I love when we were talking, the first time we talked, I think I mentioned to you that Maria Montessori, one of the core principles is like fostering independence.
Yes.
And so from a very young age, we're fostering independence with infants so that they can move on their own, sleep on their own, eat on their own, and with toddlers dress themselves and use the toilet independently. And this is just another facet of that. How do you become independent and successful with managing your own money? And that independence, as they get into primary, they're doing lots of what we call practical life, anything from like scrubbing a table to ironing to sewing. And they see adults doing these things and they know that their parents have money and that they're paying bills, but that's all they kind of know. So if there was a practical life tool for them to understand money and the management of money, I think that would be amazing. And one of the reasons why we focus so heavily on fostering independence is because it helps people feel capable, and as
100%.
people feel capable in the world, then they're more likely to engage joyfully and soulfully, in the world and do great things in the world.
Well, without
So,
even like knowing it, you led me into my second point in the segue. So that was an awesome segue because what I find so often with adults, you may have a certain competency with your investments, but overall, the entire industry shrouds the information within a bubble of fear. And if you're stuck in fear, then you'll remain ignorant, and then ignorance is going to lead towards suffering. And I really want to help mitigate that. And so that's another aspect. The second aspect of this Wondrous platform is how do you distill down ostensibly complex ideas into really tangible, simple, digestible information with normal language? And for anybody that ever reads their legal contracts, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That is a
what
different
does this
language.
Mean? Yeah.
Right? And it doesn't need to be. And it's just the way that lawyers create their own job security, the same way that financial advisors create their own job security with a lot of complex ideas, with language that kind of hides what's actually going on. So that's what we're creating and renaming our own lexicon for financial investing in very simple terms. And you should feel very confident about core concepts and core principles and move forward without fear.
Yeah. And I think Maria Montessori, obviously she created her program in the early 1900s. And would love this idea of helping people be capable with money.
I could see her on her cell phone, just like, going through it. Yeah. And
it's so essential.
Yeah.
So you and I also spoke about the fact that we believe, many educators, and particularly us Montessori people or folk, believe that children under the age of 6 should really kind of be working with their hands, and the hands are the instrument of the mind. And so I know you spoke of an app, that obviously is what everybody would be, anybody creating a business wants to, create an app if they have a successful, a successful idea, because that's how people navigate. And so, I would love for you to talk a little bit about the app, and then also, what are your thoughts about young children? I don't know. I'm just envisioning like menus and cashiers and monies and interest, and what would it look like for them to be able to actually get their hands on it at the age of 6? That would be so cool. And then just also like, oh, I'd love to help develop that.
I mean, the app process is so fascinating and so critical to modern businesses. So at launch, we'll have the application and a website, so it'll be either on a desktop or on an app that you can use. And that's also the third differentiator of Wondrous, is that a typical account, whether you're opening it for yourself as an adult or you're opening it for a child, you have
Yeah.
one input to one receiving end. And what we've
Mhm.
created legally and technically are multiple inputs to one receiving end. Simple case analysis of that is you've got a grandchild, grandparents, aunts, uncles, husband and wife, they all put micro amounts of investing. And all of a sudden you amplify the potential of
Mhm.
these accounts so that you can have economic freedom. Because let me just back
Right.
up 1 second. Over the last 50 years, I don't know how many of you know this, the upper wealth was spread out at about that 10% range. And if you were in the top 10%, you were at the highest level inside of the United States. Over the last 50 years, that's shrunk down to 1% of the
1%.
population.
Yeah.
Whose expense is that at? It is
Right.
exactly at the expense of the middle class, because
Mhm.
you have no more purchasing power as a middle class person than your parents did. And this is really sad. This is the first generation that 30-year-olds today are economically across the board worse off than their 30-year-old
Mm.
parents were. That data
Yeah.
just came out. And that's super
Well,
frustrating and inspiring for me, because that's what we're trying to go after is, hey, self-educate, create the next generation,
mhm.
and let's
Yes.
move forward with all of this. And then these, the beauty of applications, we have it set up because we have ecosystems. Let's just say the mom and dad started the account for the
Mhm.
youngster, and then uncle, grandma, grandpa, they're all micro investing on a weekly or monthly basis. Well, the child doesn't get to see all that data because, number one, at certain ages, you don't need the data. But what you do
Mhm.
need are really fun, almost like gaming things to engage the child to look at and study
Yeah.
really simple concepts. And
Yeah.
then using that concept of gaming, hey, pass these next 4 levels to get more information as you get older.
Mhm.
So a
Mhm.
12-year-old digests information differently than an 18-year-old. So
Right.
we'll have these kind of built-in systems so the education module moves forward at their own self-learning pace,
Oh,
almost
which
like
is also Montessori. Love
which
that.
is, yeah, which is so
Yeah.
funny. Like in the conversations we've had, I'm not, an expert on Montessori, but there's so many concepts that dovetail with that, and it
Yeah.
just intrinsically fits our ethos, the why of the
Right.
company I'm building, and it's so cool. And then tactile, like I think I told
Mm.
you, Sean, the story of what I did with my kids. Had them decorate 3 different mason jars.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it's save and share and spend. And then on
Mhm.
top of those jars, we put percentages. So I get to talk
Yeah.
about math. I get to talk about
Mhm.
saving. And when they reach a critical amount in the save bucket, then I open up an investment account for them.
Oh, and I
And
love that too, because it's also teaching them delayed gratification, right?
yes,
You know, like which people have issues with now, because everything's,
100%.
everybody gets their needs met so quickly. So that's teaching them that, which is a really wonderful skill. And then that whole idea of like belonging and significance and
Yeah.
being involved in their lives, really, because as we become adults, we know we create our own realities. And so now you're involving them in this process rather than just saying, okay, you just graduated from high school. Here's your, CD that I've been investing in for you for how many years
Yeah.
or whatever.
And you're like, I
Um,
don't know what to do with any of that. Yeah.
yeah. And, that's really what children want. They want to be involved usefully.
Yeah.
And, the whole idea of chores, you and I talked about this, is chores
Yeah.
shouldn't be about money. It should be about you're a contributing member of this family and we need you, which feeds their sense of value. And
Yeah.
then engaging them also lets you know that lets them know that you value them and that you think that you feel that they're capable. And it's also empowering, right? You're
Yeah.
empowering them.
Yeah.
So I love
100%.
this.
Yeah. And this is super fun to talk with you about this because it's an aspect of the way this application works. I'm geared towards helping youths, but this can also be reversed in helping the elderly. You've got an
Yeah.
aging parent that
Oh,
didn't know
yeah.
what to do, and you've got 2 brothers and sisters, and you've got a 20-year investment horizon, help out mom or dad. So
Yeah.
that channel can go upwards as well.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and it can also move into the endowment space. Teachers, you
Mm-hmm.
know this. My kids all go to a public school,
Mm-hmm.
and we fundraise the heck out of this public school in order to give them opportunities that they don't have.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I'm constantly banging my head against the wall. I'm like, we've got X number of thousands, 10 thousands of dollars left over every year. Those should be invested for the long term
Yeah.
so
I
that
love
when
the idea of an
kids,
endowment where you could just sort of operate out
right?
that interest. Yeah.
Yeah, because you always need things for the classroom. I don't care what
Mm-hmm.
level you're at or how how good your school is. There's
Well, and
always,
we all know, the problem with teacher salaries. The most important job in the world
I
and
know.
one of the lowest paid
Yeah.
professions. So yeah, that can certainly be addressed with your thoughts and ideas too.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
So what do you what's your next step with this?
So, yeah, so right now we're finishing off our first round of capital seed money, and moving into development. And then as that goes through, we'll just continually update people over the next 6 to 10 months or so. Okay, we're ready to launch. Here's the beta. Log in, set up your accounts. Let's break it, because you're on the inside of the circle here. And let's find out where we can improve. I need a lot of consumer input on how to make this really
Okay.
viable for the end user, because the user experience in the financial world sucks. Pardon my French, but it is horrible. And it's just geared towards making things really complicated. So the
Yeah.
more that we can simplify and the more input I get from more people, then the better. And then once we go, then it's just, hey, this is amazing. This is FinTech 2.0, and nobody's trying to challenge. You know what? Okay, quick side story. I've talked to a lot of large investment companies, and to a person, I love this idea, Christophe. The world needs this. There's no money in it. And I'm like,
Right.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, because the financial industry is full of avarice. That's not my original background. And I'm like, I don't give a shit about making a ton of money. What I want to do is affect people's
This is
lives.
not Wall Street. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, listen, these are tools that need to be democratized.
hmm
So we'll distill down tools of the billionaires and give it to everybody for free.
Yeah. Well, yeah, reaching our full potential, that's a piece of it,
Yeah.
understanding how to navigate our world financially. It's such an important component of everything that we do every day.
Yeah.
So I love that. Are you going to be maybe talking with some schools and having them, you know, try this out and
I'm
bring
going
it
to
into
talk
their
to
classrooms and see how it goes?
Yeah, I'm going to talk to everybody I can,
hmm
because the most important thing is, and the schooling system is really challenging because it's so fractured. It's not like we have a system we can plug in and it works all over the place. So I
Right.
know that'll be for the rest of my career with this project. That'll just be an ongoing, evolving, living
hmm
organism aspect of Wondrous. I don't see how it can be otherwise. We are going to take
Yeah.
a road trip next year, my partner and I. Rent a big camper van and just drive to small towns and talk to people about their real life problems with finance and education.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So
Yeah,
there'd be kind of a really cool documentary to go along with it and get people
yeah,
inspired.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then really all we want to do is highlight that this is super important and it is very real. And if people were just given some basic tools and information, they could take that right first step on the journey towards their financial
Yeah.
freedom, and hopefully alleviate some of that fear we feel internally every
Right.
week or every month for most people in America.
Yeah, yeah, I like what you say about that because I think I have some of that myself with money, and I know a lot of my friends do, and
Yeah,
family members, and it's kind of like embracing the fear and riding through it, and
yeah.
it's hard to do that if you don't have the tools. So
It's
you're
super hard. Yeah,
developing the tools so that we can, become more comfortable with it, and I love
yeah,
that, and I just love kind of adding to that whole idea of Montessori and practical life. It's not just about learning,
yeah,
it's about actually, practically engaging with skills that help us, to live life, with as much fulfillment as we can and to reach our full potentials and give back to the
yeah,
world, like you said.
yeah.
So this is awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Oh
And
my gosh, thank you for having me, Sean.
yeah, I can't wait to see what you guys bring.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
excited. Right around the corner.
And we'll talk soon.
Okay.